your video on as well. Perfect.
Yep.
Sorry. Hi, this is Katie Otaggio. We are going to go ahead and get started with the webinar. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is the CSP Sit Down with Envision CEO Michael Monteferrante. I'm Katie Otaggio. I am the Engagement Operations Manager for the College Success Program. Just to give you a little bit of background on this webinar, why we're here, what we're doing. The CSP was recently acquired by Envision. So Envision is one of the largest employers of individuals with vision loss in the nation. It's headquartered in Wichita, Kansas. And the mission is to improve the quality of life and provide inspiration and opportunity for people who are blind or visually impaired through employment, outreach, rehabilitation, education, and research. So we thought it would be a great time to get together with our CEO, Michael. He'll be talking with Glenn, one of our mentors. And for those of you that may not be as familiar with the CSP, CSP stands for College Success Program. It's an all virtual program that provides a holistic support system and engages students through online resources, events, mentorship, a bunch of different things that get college students engaged. And it's all provided at no cost to the students. Our resources cover everything from preparing for college to communicating with professors, from O&M on campus to socializing with friends, writing resumes, networking, interviewing, all of that stuff. And at the forefront of the CSP is our mentors. We have a strong team of mentors that are available to partner with students as they navigate their college journey and beyond. All of our mentors are recent college graduates who are also blind or have low vision. They have a wealth of knowledge from their own college and job hunting experiences that they can share with students. So one of these fantastic webinars is Glenn Dausch, who is moderating for us today. Glenn works as a web accessibility coordinator and lives in New York. While he doesn't see blindness as a barrier, he recognizes that no two people experience life the same way. In his spare time, he enjoys spending time with his family, reading, and playing the guitar. He is looking forward to sharing his experiences both as a student and as a university administrator. Glenn, welcome to the webinar. Thank you. I'm going to let you take it from here.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome everyone. I'm thrilled to participate and moderate this discussion today with Michael Monteferrante and discuss career success and what Envision brings to the College Success Program and what the College Success Program brings to Envision as an organization. Just a few quick housekeeping items that Mary may have mentioned. For those who weren't on the webinar just as we started, we are using the Zoom webinar feature this afternoon. And so that means that your camera and microphone are disabled until you are called upon. So what we're doing today, for those of you that have questions, and we do have time set aside for you to pose questions to Michael yourself, when you have a question, when that time comes for you to ask questions, we will ask you to raise your hand and Katie will acknowledge you, and you'll be presented for screen reader users with a button that will ask you to join as a participant, and your microphone will then be enabled. You'll have to unmute yourself, and you can do so using the key combination Alt-A or Command-A if you're on a Mac. And the command to raise your hand is either Alt-Y on a PC or Command-Y on a Mac. So with that out of the way, let me introduce our guest for this afternoon, Michael Monteferrante. Michael is the CEO of Envision. Excuse me. He is the president and CEO of Envision. Prior to taking the helm here at Envision, Michael held the same position, president and CEO, at Future Food Brands, which is an American capital-owned company. He also was president and CEO of Occidental Management and holds a vast array of experience in the real estate, construction, technology, and industry experience. Michael additionally has served on the board of a number of really vital organizations, among them the Wichita Chamber of Commerce, National Industries for the Blind, the National Association for the Employment of Persons Who Are Blind, the Wichita Convention and Visitors Bureau, Future Food Brands, Vintage Bank, Kansas Red Cross, the Kansas Humane Society, and the Park City Tourism Convention and Tourism Board. Michael has a BBA in Business Management from Boise State and was also recognized in 2014 as a distinguished alumni. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Glenn. It's great to be here today.
Well, thank you. We're glad to have you. So can you tell us a bit about how you became to be the president and CEO of Envision, your background, and how you got started in this field?
Absolutely, Glenn. And again, thank you. And hello, everyone. It's great to have you on board today on this webinar, and I'm very excited to share some incredible details in regards to our relationship with the College Success Program. You did a pretty good job there. There's not a ton, or Glenn, not a ton that I can add in terms of the background, but I'll add a few things. And thank you, Katie and Mary, for helping set up this opportunity to share what Envision's up to right now. But yeah, the things that Glenn mentioned, in addition to that, I spent a lot of time in your backyard, Glenn, in terms of New York City, when we were very involved with rebuilding the entire MTA system. So I'm a big NYCTA, MTA, Long Island Railroad, PATH, NJT, SEPTA person. And so a lot of those things, I know you've probably had the opportunity to ride along with many people that are on this webinar today. So a transit guy through and through before I embarked in some of those things that Glenn mentioned. During the time I've been in Wichita, which has been 2003 forward, I was involved with this organization called Optima Bus. And in 2005, the CEO of Envision and the chairperson of the board met with me and had lunch with me and said, you know, we're really a manufacturing organization with a mission-based service enterprise, and we don't have any manufacturing people on our board of directors. And we think it's really important as we continue to progress to recruit someone from a manufacturing background. And my manufacturing background was the manufacture of locomotives, subway cars, and buses. So at that time, I was the CEO of Optima Bus here in Wichita. And so I said, okay, I don't know anything about Envision. I don't know anything about blind visual impairment, but I know a little bit about manufacturing. So they said, okay, we'll come and do a tour of our organization, of our manufacturing plant next week. And so I said, okay, sounds good. And it was scheduled to be a 1-hour tour of our Water Street manufacturing facility in Wichita. Came down there, starts the tour, and with the first minute, I raised my hand. I go, well, wait a minute here. I was expecting to be in an operation here with blind visually impaired people. They go, you are. 90% of the people that you see making these 3 million plastic bags a day and 2.5 million business cards a year are blind and visually impaired. I paused. People were rocking and rolling, and I said, I don't know what we're going to do for the next 59 minutes, but I'm in. So my love affair with Envision started 16 years ago in regards to that opportunity. So I came on the board. I did a 3-year stint in Dallas, Texas, and working with Future Food Brands. So I left Envision and then was recruited back to be the CEO in 2013. And so I've just started my 10th year here. And so I don't have blind visually impaired people in my family. And it's all been through the people I've connected with in my 9-year journey as the CEO, and the 5 years that I had between 2005 and 2010 being on the board of directors. And so ever since then, I've been excited and continue to tirelessly work on behalf of individuals who are blind, visually impaired, to progress their life and to progress their careers in any which way we possibly can. And then through this, right? So Glenn, and I can continue to kind of walk you through Envision's history and where we came to the College Success Program, if that's a appropriate time, or if I should pause and let you ask another question.
Yeah, let's take a pause, and we will certainly walk through that path. But I have a few questions along the way that will help us get there. Before we come back to Envision a little bit, as a CEO, what would you say is the most important thing that you want students to take away from your journey? What is most important for students to know about Michael Monteferrante?
That they have a passionate friend that's ready to work on their behalf and progress their life and career to the best of our ability. And that's why I come to work every day.
Excellent. So now I know you spoke earlier about Envision and your path to Envision, but as we mentioned earlier, Envision recently acquired the CSP. As your position as the CEO, can you talk a little bit about your vision for how the CSP integrates within Envision?
Absolutely. It's a deep story, right? Because there is, to get here, it took a host of sequential steps, right? To one, realize the importance of this merger, and then two, to understand some of the barriers on why we weren't aware of it to begin with, right? And so, but at the end of the day, what's really important about this program and why we are so excited about it is that Envision, through discovery, focused on our Workforce Innovation Center initiatives, clearly understood that while we were doing a great job with youth, educations, and assistive technology, and we're doing a decent job of training, placing, and educating potential employers, we were missing that segment of when the kids were graduating from high school and until they successfully completed college. And we were just kind of assuming everything once they got into college that they'd be rolling right through it and so forth without a ton of adversity. And we were waiting for them to come out of college so we could work with them and help get them trained and placed into a job with a meaningful employer that would be a successful match. And so we were saying, well, where are these? How come they're not graduating? What's happening? And then we discovered why. Then we understood there was a solution, and it was the College Success Program at Learning Ally. And we go, wow, this is a huge missing segment in terms of our universe of what we needed to do. And the accelerant that College Success Program meant for us was it would have taken us years to reproduce the system that Learning Ally and College Success Program had done. And so we felt it was a perfect match, and that's what it means.
So can you talk a little bit about the partnership between Envision and students? How do you see Envision partnering with students to improve that rate of success for those students?
Great question. One of the things that's going to be very important is that we continue to platform the CSP program in general. So younger individuals that are coming up through the education system from grade school to middle school to high school have an understanding and awareness that there's opportunities coming up for them as they approach college, and that we are a well-fortified organization committed to continuing to help accelerate their success through college and then the workplace. And so it's important that we attach as early as possible to teenagers and even younger folks than teenagers. And then when they get to that point, even if they haven't had the exposure to Envision, to invite them into the family, to understand what the organization's all about, both on a mission-based service side and a margin-based opportunity to where they can kind of understand the ecosystem and the depth of the organization that they, one, could potentially work for, or two, can help facilitate them working for someone else, and that we're in it for the long run and well fortified to do so. And so then as it comes to the opportunity for the College Success Program in its own fashion and format, that we are committed, we're dedicated, we meet on it every single day as a corporation in terms of what more can we do, what aren't we doing that students need, and how can we scale accordingly to the continuing needs of blind, visually impaired students in college.
I'm really glad to hear, I see in your vision, grabbing students on the front end and bringing them into the program, but also following through the program and coming out to the workforce. It seems like there's a lot of synergy there. So I'm wondering if we can step back to Envision as an organization for a second. In previous interviews that you've done, you've discussed how the business side of Envision has informed your mission, and the service side has influenced your business. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the business and the service side have impacted each other and made Envision a stronger organization.
Yeah, great question, Glenn, and a fairly easy question to answer. So how we've set the organization up is for long-term success and strength from a financial standpoint. So when unexpected scenarios happen in our lives, like a pandemic and so forth, we continue to swim through it accordingly. We don't stop, we don't reverse, we don't say, oh no. We say, okay, it's a branch of adversity, we keep moving on, which is just a good mindset for anyone to have, right? Even when you're going through college, blind and visually impaired, right? You're gonna deal with all kinds of barriers and adversity. Forge ahead, don't give up. And so with that, our margin side of the business, where we have 90% of our direct labor employees are blind and visually impaired. 50% of the entire company are blind and visually impaired people. 550 people strong in 16 locations in 10 states, primarily in Wichita, Kansas, and in Dallas, Texas. And we build a host of products that we make. I mentioned plastic bags. I mentioned business cards. We have a textile division where we do a host of sewing for the United States military, DoD, government, private enterprise, and make a host of folders, binders, and we make these from scratch. Award binders, eyeglass cases. We have injection molding machines, right? Making plastic products and and so forth. And so magic markers and highlighters that we make for the United States government. And so with those profits, what we do, and we've got about 550 employees right now. But with those profits, what we do is we mobilize those into service-based enterprises that give us the opportunity to serve thousands of people. So we employ hundreds of people, we serve thousands. And when I say we serve thousands, we have an early child development center from 0 to 4.5 years old, where it integrates typically sighted children and blind visually impaired children. And it improves and progresses the lives of both typically sighted, not only children, but people and parents by having this great experience of this coalescence. Then we have a rehabilitation center where we serve people that are suffering with various forms of macular degeneration, regardless of their ability to pay, because of that mission-based margin enterprise that I just talked about earlier. And then we have an Envision Research Institute where we're not solving blindness, but we do have a practicum where we're doing the applied science of research in regards to various forms of visual impairment. And then we have 21 different programs that we have within our team, everything from music to golf to assistive technology and adventure camps and a whole lot of other programs. And then we have our Workforce Innovation Center, which is completely dedicated to training, placing, and educating both employees and employers. And so when you have that kind of an ecosystem that's been created here, that has both a margin component and a services component, they feed off of each other. That margin side gives us the ability to have an incredibly robust, in fact, it's unparalleled in the country in terms of what Envision does from a services standpoint. You will not find another organization in the country, in North America, and some of the experts say in the world that has the complement of services and opportunities that Envision offers. So then when you have that opportunity in terms of offering those services, how it complements the margin side of the business is you're opening yourself up to hundreds and hundreds of different companies that want to work with you, that we would never have had the exposure to unless we had that services side of the organization. So it's a fascinating mixture of an ecosystem that feeds off of one another, to where at the end of the day, you become not only a sustainable enterprise, but a viable enterprise for the long term.
So I'm wondering if we could touch a little bit more on the development. How do you see students and mentors furthering that development and developing a strategic vision to continue that long-term growth?
Key, very key component, because the students are the future, right? So, you know, we could have an entire hour on just the future of employment and employees. It's all about the students, educated students that are ready to progress and make an impact in this world. So first of all, the key component is the students themselves, right? And when you've got mentors, which is just, you know, it's a goosebump experience when you think about the mentors that have gone through that process of education through, you know, hundreds of different colleges throughout the world, right? And advanced degrees on top of bachelor degrees and so forth, and have gone on to do great things and are excited to help other students get through I'd call it a tough journey, right? Let's not mix our words here. This tough journey of anybody getting through college, it's not easy. But when we're dealing with a 15% success factor of an individual who's blind getting through college, wow, they need support. They need the opportunity to have someone make an impact in their lives. And so this combination of these students and the mentors are huge, because what they're going to do together is they're going to dramatically improve more highly educated, blind, visually impaired people to continue to make a difference in the world. And that's huge. And without the mentors, many colleges, many college students will never get there. And so that ecosystem of the mentorship program with college students will equate to a higher productivity in the workforce with the impact of blind and visually impaired employees.
Well said. So many college students today are taking part in diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. And for some of those students, they may see the term inspiration in Envision's mission statement as particularly ableist or harmful to persons with disabilities. While at the same time, as you spoke about earlier, people who are losing their vision later in life are looking for inspiration, looking for ways to continue to thrive and continue the life that they've had and find ways to adapt. As a leader, how do you meld these two very valid representations of disability and weave that path together to allow both halves of the organization to be successful?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm taking in, the thought and the focus on that word inspiration, which is obviously in our mission statement, and reflecting on the question, right? So to me, as the leader of the organization, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, you mentioned earlier my engagement with the Chamber of Commerce. I was actually the chairperson of the Chamber of Commerce in Wichita, 1,800 companies. And my platform, my entire platform was based on differently abled people in the workplace, not just individuals who are blind and visually impaired. And diversity and inclusion is obviously a lot more than just ethnicity and gender. And my point and my platform is that for the most part across America, and I was very engaged with it, it was that. I go, it's so much more than that. And so when we tie that into inspiration being a part of Envision's mission statement, is, to me, it absolutely doesn't matter whether you can see or you can't see, everyone can be inspired. And I know this for a fact because I've not had only dozens of people, but hundreds of blind individuals visit our organization, go through it, understand what we're doing, and they are incredibly inspired. They're inspired by one, what they're seeing there, right? But they're also inspired about what we are doing for individuals to continue to progress their lives and their careers, and they leave here inspired. And so we embrace the word inspired here at Envision. We don't move toward that side to where someone maybe has a take on, oh my gosh. No, we just don't view it that way. We don't feel it that way, and we don't live it that way. And we talk from the experience of what blind and visually impaired people have said to us once they've gotten to know us. And so, yeah, we're proud of the word inspiration and being inspired in regards to Envision, whether you're typically sighted or blind visually impaired.
Thank you. So let's move over to employment. What do you see as the CEO of Envision as the largest barrier to employment for blind and visually impaired people, and how is Envision preparing to tackle that barrier?
In all transparency, ignorance. That's my one word answer to your question. The barrier is plain ignorance, right? Starting with me 16 years ago, right? Without really understanding and knowing the technology, the passion, the work ethic, the commitment, and the loyalty of people who are blind and visually impaired, how would I know anything about their ability to perform at the highest level when people are just ignorant about blind visual impairment, right? And so it's education to the employer that's going to make the difference. We all know, or most of the people on this webinar today understand the technology that's out there. They understand the hard work of what it's going to take to get to that level of employment that they all seek. And our job is to continue to educate the employers of, those principles that I just shared a few minutes ago, all 6 of them, that make outstanding employees for the long run. And once they understand, we've seen doors fly open. We've seen industries embrace individuals who are blind and visual impairment. We've seen the United States Air Force come to us, bring us your blind, visually impaired, educated individuals. We want to put them in a job in the United States Air Force. We want them to make 6-figure incomes, and we want them to have a robust retirement. Help us recruit them. And so it's a big deal. And you think the Air Force did that 5 years ago, much less 10 or 15? No. But they were educated and they were inspired by what they saw here at Envision. And it really is a cool program. And it's been a blast having our employees progress their career and move into wonderful jobs with the United States Air Force, the Department of Defense in general, and the United States government, in addition to a bunch of other private companies and not-for-profit companies. And so it's fantastic in terms of what it can do. And it's a matter of education. We need to get out there. Even Envision continues to need to do a better job of educating employers about the level of expertise, both college and in some case, non-college educated individuals, and the impact that they can have in your organization. It's unbelievable.
So let's move to a bit of that education piece, because let's be frank about it. The last 2 years has been an education for all of us and how to do things differently. And the last 2 years really have been a lesson in transforming work, where it was one standard practice that you showed up to your job at a physical location. In order to keep processes moving during the course of the pandemic, everything had to turn remote on a dime. And so there were many lessons that were taken from that process, least of which was that it could be more accessible for persons who are blind or visually impaired because transportation is no longer a barrier. So how has Envision seen this process play out over the last 2 years? And what lessons do you think employers can take moving forward from the processes that they undertook over the past 2 years?
Great question, Glenn. And we have an executive staff meeting at Envision every Monday, right? And it usually lasts about 90 minutes. And then we go through the various divisions within the company and so forth, the various issues. We start every meeting with a COVID update, right? And I've been doing it now for almost 2 years. And we are now embarking on a series of internal HR initiatives that are dealing with exactly that. And what we have come to a conclusion on, and we've actually been operated in some different forms and different situations based on if it's manufacturing or service oriented, whether it's first shift or second shift. You know, there's a Rubik's Cube of scenarios that play out here in an organization like ours when you're an essential workplace, right? So we're an essential workplace, and we've got that situation due to that we supply products and services to the United States government and specifically the Department of Defense. And so we have learned to continue to evolve to have a full and comprehensive understanding of exactly what that, in some ways, vague question can really mean, right? So, and with that being said, we continue to evolve as an organization to understand what it's going to take to attract qualified employees, what it's going to take to retain those qualified employees, and what it's going to take to compensate those qualified employees. So it's a three-prong situation, all of them important. And in our strategic plan, one of the baselines that we have in our strat plan is exactly that. We must at a very high level attract and retain the most qualified people we can possibly bring into the company. And so with that, there must and will be a degree of flexibility and understanding in terms of how that happens. Is it clear as a bell today? No. But is there a commitment within the executive team and the board of directors of Envision that this is the path forward? Yes. And is there action plans in place as we speak in order to continue to educate us on the best path forward? Yes.
Excellent. Well, we still have a number of questions to get through, and we are running a bit short on time. So I think we're going to do, I'm going to call this the round robin of 1-minute questions. So what involvement do you see Envision having in making mainstream employment technology accessible? So for example, HR or payment processing software.
Yeah. A lot, right? So the evolution of the HR's approach and the collaboration of the executive team is imperative, right? In terms of we have our customer service is 100% blind and visually impaired. I know a question came up in the chat room of what percent, 50% of our employees are blind and visually impaired right across the organization. And so it's important for them to have accessible information of how to do their job across the board. 100% of our customer service staff is blind and visually impaired, right? So we want to continue to move that through. We have a blind and visually impaired individual in every one of our departments in terms of how we roll through the company to ensure that each of the departments within the organization has command and a mastery of what are some of the obstacles and what are some of the areas that we need to continue to improve to make our organization the most accessible possible. And it will be an eternal quest to continue to improve that.
Thank you. How do you see Envision addressing equitable access for persons with multiple disabilities, not just blindness or visual impairment.
Well, in terms of what, Glenn? In terms of what is exactly does that mean?
So I'm thinking about somebody that may be deaf, blind, or have a blindness co-occurring with another disability such as cerebral palsy or other access needs.
Okay, so we obviously have individuals that are in our child development center that are also deaf, in addition to being visually impaired, right? And we've got differently abled people on our workshop floor, differently abled people in our services side, wheelchair bound, and so forth. And we have an entire organization here called Pride, where we have a combination of different type of individuals that work here that have a combination of different situations that we help train them on in order to produce the products that they're working on and so forth, and individual coaching with these folks to continue to advance themselves, for them to be able to earn a paycheck, where in most cases they may not be able to do that. And so Envision has a full facilitation where right now, I believe we have over 43 employees in a segment of our organization where we continue to promote their ability to work, build products, and get paid a good wage.
Thank you. Noting your background in public transportation, have you used or do you intend to use this experience to improve the access to public transportation, especially seeing as public transportation often poses a significant barrier to blind and visually impaired persons getting to work locations?
Yeah, good question on transportation. Obviously dear to my heart. I was on the Wichita Transit Board of Advisors at one time for 4 years. I've obviously was very involved with the American Public Transit Association, where I was on their board of governors for 18 years during part of my career. And so when I came to Envision, this was one of the top things on my mind. How can we help improve? One, the system in general in Wichita was broken, for lack of a better word, and they're investigating spoken hub type situations on how the buses would run and make it more convenient for folks who are blind and visually impaired to use the system more effectively on how it worked. But then what we did is, when we started the Envision Research Institute, we collaborated on a real cool technology, right? So, we've got GPS opportunities on our phone that can get us to certain places, but then it loses its granularity to really what I would call assist a person who's blind and visually impaired the closer they get to that target, right? The GPS is too broad. So we created beacon technology, built the program to where GPS, when GPS falls off, the beacon technology at bus stops would take over. So we populated the entire, every single bus stop in Wichita, Kansas, with beacons inside the bus stops, and then created an app on your phone that you could go right to the bus stop if you are walking or however you're getting to the bus stop, and you're in the vicinity of that bus stop. The GPS then loses its granularity to get you there. The beacon takes over and pings you all the way to the bus stop, and then outfitted the drivers that when they're driving towards a bus stop, it would give them the indication that someone is using that app. So then the bus driver knew that there was going to be someone at that bus stop who's blind and visually impaired. And then that app would also be, once you get in the bus and you program where you want to get off, that thing's going to start giving you an indicator that your bus stop's coming up, so you have a better indicator. And so then we went to the APTA shows nationally in Washington, D.C., and started approaching the bus manufacturers and the transit authorities in terms of the benefits of this app. And so, yeah, we've done some great initiatives in terms of improving or bringing new concepts to the market in regards to that.
And briefly, what sort of uptake did you see when you took that to transit conferences? Do you see other cities adopting this technology?
It was tough sledding, Glenn.
Yeah.
That we had the buy-in. We had the buy-in of the OEMs, right? Because they get a certain amount of funds from the federal government that apply to ADA type requirements. So the bus manufacturers had no problem adopting it. We struggled with the transit authorities in terms of a revenue model that would work for both them and us. So
Still work to be done.
It wasn't a big hit like we thought it would be right off the bat, and the business modeling was not perfected yet. And so it's still, it works, it's there, but it's all about how do you get that done in mass cities? A place like Wichita, Kansas, we could get it done. You go to a place like New York City, Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago, Washington, D.C., it becomes much more complex just because of the number of buses and the number of bus stops. Absolutely.
Well, I look forward to future developments. Real quickly, we have two quick questions left. Let's flip this around a little bit. We've gone through a lot of questions for you, but what are your top 3 questions for college students in no particular order? What are the things you want to know from college students today?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. What we want to know from college students, which is really important to us, is what do you feel from your perspective you need to be successful, right? We can think all day about what we think you need and what we're here to help solve based on our own strategies and initiatives in terms of what we're seeing in the marketplace. But right now, we need more feedback from them. We need more engagement, okay? And this is something we're putting a big push on. And one of the things we're bringing to the table to the College Success Program is we are willing to make whatever financial commitments we can, whatever personal commitments we can, but we're going to bring engagement to an entire new level. And you can expect a lot from us, but we're going to expect a lot from you. So we're looking for engagement from the mentors and the college students of what they think we still need to do as a society to help elevate the 5 and 6 things that the CSP is all about, right?
Absolutely. And so do you want the audience to share that feedback with CSP at envisionus.com, or is there another address that you would like them to direct that feedback to?
Yeah, good question. So it's a matter of the, I would say the Envision's College Success Program has its own website.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you're going to get the most bang for the buck. But however, the great thing about that is at envisionus.com, the questions will also get through. So there's really 2. There's the college CSP at envisionus.com. There's envisionus.com. There's Mary.Alexander at envisionus.com, Karen.Page at envisionus.com. So there's a host, but CSP at envisionus.com is great. Or
And
yeah, that would be the one that I would recommend going to.
And just to follow up, since you mentioned the College Success website, that is collegesuccessbvi.org. That's college success, B as in Bravo, V as in Victor, I as in indigo.org. All right, so Michael, one quick last question for you. We've given a lot of advice to college students, but what is the best advice that was ever given to you? And we won't take the advice of taking the helmet at Envision. So something that somebody else gave you that you say, that was, my life would be completely different without that tip. And did you take it? Yes or no?
Yes. Check your ego at the door.
Great advice. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I'm going to turn it back over to Katie, who has been managing the chat and questions. And it's now your turn. If you have a question, please raise your hand using Alt-Y or Command-Y, and we'll continue the questions for Michael.
Great, thank you, guys. It looks like we have a question from Alira. She's raised her hand. Alira, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. So go ahead and ask your question.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
hi, Lyra.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Michael, for your presentation. Thank you for being here. So my question is, you guys had mentioned, or Michael, you had mentioned that you had some child development center. Is this at Envision? Is this at Envision's headquarters? Excuse me. And are you guys currently hiring?
As a matter of fact, we are hiring in our ECDC. It is based in Wichita, Kansas. We just bought a new facility in Dallas, Texas. And in Dallas, Texas, there will be an early child development center there also. There is not one there today, but it is on the drawing board. When we build out the new facility, there'll be one there also. And currently we have, it moves around a little bit because these kids graduate as they roll into kindergarten. About 40, I think it's about 42 to 44 kids right now in our ECDC. And there is, I believe, 9 teachers, of which 5 of those teachers are blind and visually impaired.
Okay. That's awesome. The only reason why I asked is because I'm actually going to school to be a TBI.
Yes.
So I mean, unfortunately, I'm not in the Wichita area. I'm from New Jersey. So I'm wondering, is Envision hiring anyone in New Jersey in education or in child development?
A great question. To the best of my knowledge, today we are not, but it goes back to that evolving discussion that we talked about at the earlier part of this webinar, in terms of as we continue to evolve and discover new ways of doing things better and more efficiently, there's nothing off the table. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of understanding how it fits in and how it improves our program and how it helps make our program more efficient. So love to continue to interact. And also on that envisionus.com site, there is an opportunity to weigh in with questions like that you can get answers on with the right individual in that area.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Anyone has any other questions, please use the raise hand feature.
And Katie, just to highlight, I believe Terry has dropped a link in the chat for those that need it to the open positions here at Envision.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good comments coming through in terms of augmenting, some of my answers with various individuals that happen to be at Envision. and are weighing in with great counsel and advice. So thank you, team, for that.
Looks like we had a few comments come in the Q&A portion of the webinar chat. It looks like they're mostly around talking about some barriers to employment in college. It looks like there's a question around Bookshare, streaming books, getting that kind of stuff through Amazon. That is a question that we will try to address offline. We'll have to dig in a little bit more, research that a little bit more. Hopefully we'll be able to get some answers to that, and we can include that in our follow-ups.
Great, thank you. And then Robin Stewart at 425-7287, area code 316. We have 2 recruiters on our staff, and also Chelsea. We have 2 recruiters that, if we go into the chat, there are defined with their phone numbers for anyone to be able to connect with our recruiters. They would love to hear from you.
Thank you, Michael. That's an excellent resource.
It doesn't appear that we have any more hands raised, and we're coming right up on the end of our hour. So if anyone does have any questions that you think of afterwards, again, you can shoot them over to the csp@envisionus.com email address, and we will do our best to answer them for you. So with that, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Glenn. You both did a fantastic job. Lots and lots of great information. Really, I think we're all excited to see, and continue to see where Envision is going and what will be done as far as employment. And again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job setting it all up, guys. Well done. Well done. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. And Glenn, hopefully you and Katie will invite me back sometime.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great week, everybody.
Have a great one.